she has really broken the mold as far as what I grew up thinking a good Indian girl was.
We don't owe an explanation to anybody for what we do.
Many of us get it wrong, that we try to make our parents proud of us and doing the things we think they want us to do when they're already proud of us.
Should pursue things that you're passionate about, because if you're not passionate about it, I guarantee you it's not going to come out.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Happy and Human podcast. This is your co-host Dinesh Melwani, and I am excited to be back for another episode with my awesome co-host Seema. Seema, how are you doing today?
Good morning. I'm great. How are you?
I am great. And we're back on our regular schedule, right? We're recording on a Saturday morning.
Yes.
And we've got a guest today, a really special guest. Do you want to tell us about her a little bit?
You know, this guest, I can't even begin to tell you how amazing she is. She has, she kind of has this edge, but not without compromising just so much compassion and kindness. She's one of the nicest people I know, but importantly, she has really sort of broken the mold as far as what I grew up thinking a good Indian girl was. And because of that, I have admired her for years. She's inspired me, and she has been such a pillar of strength for me throughout the years. And so I'm really, really excited to bring onto the show Neena Buxani, who I'll let Neena tell us all about who she is and what she does. But Neena, thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you, Seema. That's the nicest introduction anybody's ever given me. Well, my name is Neena. I'm a professional artist. I live in Austin, Texas, with my husband and two boys. I haven't always been a professional artist. I've done a lot of different things growing up and in my adult life. When I got out of high school, basically, I went to my parents and I said, I want to go to the Art Institute of Dallas. And they said no. Like, that is not something that we're going to support. So I was a good little Indian girl. And so I found some other things that I thought I would like. So I got a bachelor's degree in advertising and speech communications, and then was not fulfilled and continued on and got a master's degree in social work. And then I was a substance abuse counselor, a loan officer. I owned a jewelry store, managed a hotel, all along, doing my art. And then when we finally sold our hotel, I was able to move into it a little bit more full time. So,
yeah. I've watched you evolve over the years. For those of you who don't know, like when Manish and I moved to Austin, Neena and her husband were one of the first people that we became friends with. And I've had the pleasure, Neena, of watching you shed the weight of expectation and breaking the mold. I've watched you evolve. And even for the way you do your hair, like when we met, it was good Indian girl hair. Like it was long. It was like mine, just like long and very like normal. And yours is totally cute now. But now if you can't really see it on the computer, guys, but it's got this like little edge. It gives you just this like dash of unexpected, this dash of asymmetry. And that's exactly what Neena is, right? She's just so kind and compassionate, but like she's got such a creative artistic flair that she's unafraid to bring authentically into this world, and we're so grateful for it.
Thank you, Seema. No more flattery. I can't handle it.
It's not flattery.
Well, I want to like talk about a little bit more flattery, to be honest, because I think a lot of us admire in other people what we wish to be, right? Like if you think about kids in a sports star, right? The kid will admire that because they want to be known for that athleticism or to follow their dreams. And, I hear Seema describing that edge. And I think that one of the magnetic qualities you have is that you did go from substance abuse counselor, right? You're a gemologist, you had a jewelry store, loan officer, and didn't put out of your mind the calling of the art, right? It stayed with you. You worked on it. And through perseverance and grit, you're now, just Google your name and you'll see how many exhibitions and all the articles about you. Talk to us about that. Talk to us about, were those things part of the broken road that led you to your dreams, right? Like where you
I
traveling this
mean,
path.
so all the other things that I did.
Yeah.
I mean, I think definitely. I think timing is a really important thing in life. And I think about whether if I had right out of high school gone in and pursued art at that point, would I still be doing it? And maybe I wouldn't, you know. I've met a lot of artists who did go to art school and they just got burnt out, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that, you know, we all have our path in life and sometimes it's a lot of zigzagging.
Mm-hmm.
But it's what we learn along the way that really shapes who we are and what we do in the present moment. And I think all the things that I've done has shaped who I am today and has helped me in creating the art that I create.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you can see, Neena, in your art, like you have like a whole line, right, of like the jewel line. We
Mhm.
have actually a set and hanging in our home in the front room. You've used the education and experiences that you've had owning a jewelry store and being a gemologist and incorporating that into your art. So it's
Yeah.
never really a lost experience, even though it
Yeah,
might be easy to say that you quote unquote lost time.
right.
Obviously
I
not.
completely agree. Yeah. I mean, I call them my jewels, and it's just, you know, it kind of takes everything that I learned from the jewelry industry through getting, you know, my certification as a gemologist, all that good stuff. And, you know, everything's still there in the back of
Yeah.
your head. It doesn't go away. And it comes out in different ways,
Yeah.
unexpectedly, really.
Hmm.
Did you ever have that thought in your head when you were selling the hotel and moving to art full time that maybe my time has passed? It's kind of late now.
Yeah.
Talk to
I
us
still
about that.
sometimes do. Sometimes I'm like, I feel like that actually, um, starting later in life has pushed me harder, actually,
Mm,
because at first I felt like, oh no, I have to catch up, right? So you're just catching up the entire time. And so, or that's how I felt at the, you know, when I
Right.
started. And so I just grinded even harder. And I was like, oh no, I gotta catch up. I gotta, you know, I gotta learn everything. I gotta do everything. And so yeah, I mean, I think that's always kind of there. But I mean, life is long, but life is short, right?
mm,
Mhm.
And so we have to appreciate the present moment. And so, and really, really, you know, enjoy what we're doing now. And that's what it's all about in the end.
yeah. What would you say to the person who's having those thoughts and the next thought after that, or the question they can't answer is, would it be worth it? Like, should I go all in? Is it going to be worth it at the end?
Oh, yeah, it's definitely going to be worth it in the end. You know, I mean, well, I believe in reincarnation, so we have more than one life, but
Mm,
we remember one life. And you have to, I mean, I think, you know, you can work for the weekends or you can work for the moment, right?
yeah.
And I choose to work for the moment because then that's what brings you happiness because
Hmm.
you're enjoying everything you do. I mean, not all the time, but, you know, for the most part.
Yeah.
Sort of grounds you in today.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, Here's a quote that I thought of when preparing for this. And I don't know if you know who Richard Schmidt is, but he was apparently a
Mhm.
really famous artist and painter. And I want to read the quote online or live and get your reactions to it. And Richard Schmidt said, he asked a question. He said, is our function simply to achieve excellence the way nature does without the need for justification and explanation?
Yeah. I mean, I think that sounds, yeah, we don't owe an explanation to anybody for what we do. And I think that that's a way that we should all live our lives, really, you know. How are you going to be the truest version of yourself? You know, are you going to live your life for everybody else or are you going to live it for yourself, really?
So how do you say, because I know, Neena, you and I have had many conversations about being a girl in an Indian
Mhm.
culture where, you know, we were brought up with very traditional upbringings and our families are still very traditional. So I feel like that's sort of where you and I have both had that conversation of, yeah, it feels like you're almost like a fish out of water, because here you are wanting to do what you want to do. Um, and you feel like you don't really owe that explanation to anybody, and yet you feel like you do. How did you navigate that differential?
I think, I think I still go back and forth. And I think it's a challenge every day because I do care what my parents think. I love my
Mhm.
Sure.
parents and I don't want to disappoint them. And, but slowly, I used to care what my aunts and uncles thought. I used to think, I used to care what the Indian community thought. And it's not that I don't anymore, but
Right.
it is that I don't, so I'm slowly starting to reshape in my mind what that means to me. And I think my relationship with my parents is different now because instead of always trying to make them proud of me, which
Mhm.
I think a lot of Indian people do, I want them to know who I am as a person and love me anyways, right? Like, regardless if they agree with what I choose to do. They don't, as much as I like to think I know what's best for my children, in the end, I mean, when they're young, I probably do. When they're older and they've developed their own personalities and their likes and dislikes, I don't live their life and I don't know what really, gets them passionate and what makes them happy unless you are them, right?
Right.
So, I mean, at some point, you have to realize that guess what? Your parents don't always know what that's for you. And
Yeah.
just, you know,
Yeah. You said something that made me think of sort of being a parent right now. You said at some point you wanted to make your parents proud of you. And I think we all can relate to that given our histories, and we're all parents. And I wonder if as we're growing up, through our 20s, 30s, 40s, and that many of us get it wrong, that we try to make our parents proud of us and doing the things we think they want us to do when they're already proud of us, and we don't need to do anything to make them proud of us. Because I look at my son and my daughter, I'm proud of them just the way they are, right? Just, I mean, I tell my son he's handsome. Lately, I've been telling them that a lot because I really think that. Um, and for me to sit there and think that at some point he's going to think that, hey, if I do this, then dad will be proud of me, just blows my mind. And I didn't have that realization until you said that. Do you think we get that wrong when we're growing up? And what would you say to the next Neena who's, in her 20s, or if in high school, maybe even she's 16 years old and she wants to do something um, and listens to this podcast, because hopefully this lives forever on the internet. What would you say to her?
I think that being a good person is really what matters most in the end. I think you're right. My parents have always been I mean, they're just beautiful people. And I think in their minds, they had an idea of what they wanted for their children. And no, I don't blame them for that, but that's just kind of, when you come here from not having much and then you work so hard to get where you are, you want more for your children. And there's nothing wrong with that. But so I think in their mind, they thought that that's what that's what would make them proud is if their kids did this or this or that. But in the end, right now, if you talk to them, they just want us really to be happy. And I think that's what I would say. I would say, do what makes you happy, and that'll make your parents happy.
Mm,
Yeah. I think a lot of our parents, when you're in that like stress of scarcity, like you come here with $2 in your pocket or, whatever. Everybody's story is a little bit different, but generally you come here because you're in search of something. And I think that, when you're in that mindset, the idea of doing what makes you happy is really, it's a pipe dream almost,
yeah.
right? Like they're interested in survival. And so at the heart of hearts of things, if you were to coach them through it, essentially, you would get to, we just want you to be happy. We just want you to be healthy. We want you to, feel loved. But I think it gets clouded over the years with just old thought patterns and old like things that have been passed down through the generation. You have to be a lawyer or an engineer, or you have to marry the right boy or the right girl, and that's the safety is what's going to guarantee you the happiness.
Mm-hmm.
And so I love that you just have absolved them of generational patterns that, just in recognition that it really, truly, once they see you happy, invariably they will come around to, oh, wow, she's happy. And that's what I really want. Maybe it wasn't this other stuff that I thought I wanted for her.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Also, our parents had a different set of struggles than we have, and by many measures, we're living a relatively luxurious life compared to moving across the ocean and setting up camp in a country where you don't know the language. So we have the luxury to think about these things. And one of the things I think that our parents maybe didn't quite appreciate that we have the awareness of now is that their parenting is not a reflection of how we turned out, right? Like, so if my son or daughter didn't do something compared to whoever, auntie down the street or whatever, that means I'm a bad parent or I didn't do my job. I think that that's probably a story that I've heard. And we don't have to really approach parenting from that lens.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's very easy to look at, like Neena's kids, and they are very involved in certain activities or certain things. And the comparatitis can go off if you're not careful and say, like, well, what am I doing wrong? I didn't put my kids in this activity, or I didn't have them go to this school, or, but that's, we give away our power when we do that, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So your art is fantastic. It's amazing.
Thank you.
And you paint a lot of nature. And right now, I don't know if they're still available, but my two favorite ones are All the Purple Things. And it's between that and A Little Thirsty. And if you remember those, if you remember those,
I do.
they have purple in them because my daughter loves purple. And I think your art, the nature that you paint is so beautiful. And so the question I have for you is, should art be used to express beauty and the ugly and painful side of life? Because life, we know, is a duality, right? You can't have dark without night. You can't have, loud without silence, and you can't have happiness without sorrow and sadness. What do you think about using art to also express that side? And I know people would say, yeah, sure, it's a reflection of life, but should it be used for that? Or should it be used for sort of like a Hindi movie, which is an escape from life, right? Like highlight the beauty in life, to call it out, because sometimes we're so focused on the negative sides and we need the art to remind us of the positive. What do you think?
So I think it just depends on the artist, really. I've painted some dark stuff. I don't
Like what?
show it.
Oh,
Well,
that's
I mean,
another question. We'll come back to
well,
that.
that is not, it's not really more realistic stuff. It's more abstract stuff. If you want to get emotions out, right? Art therapy. But for me, I do like to surround myself with beauty and happy things. I spend a lot of hours on some paintings, take me like 40, 50 hours.
Oh, wow.
And what do I want to spend my time with, really, right? Do I want to spend my time with something that's going to make me smile, or do I want to spend my time with something that's going to horrify me, really? So that's my choice. I think it depends on the artist. So I don't think there's a right and wrong there. I just, and maybe, 5, 10 years from now, I may completely change what I paint. Maybe 2 years from now, I'll change.
Oh, wow. So I'll come back to this dark stuff that you're not showing the world, but do you feel that you were born an artist, or did life and your experiences teach you or made you an artist?
So in my opinion, I was born an artist. I think we're all artists in different ways, but as a young child, that's just what I've always wanted to do, and I remember writing down, there was answering questions, and the question was, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I wrote, I want to be a professional artist. And I was very young when I wrote that. But I remember it because that is just what I've always wanted to do. And, I was the kid drawing in class, while the teacher was talking. I just have always done something artistic. There was a time where it wasn't necessarily fine arts, it was more dancing, but there's always been something, I needed a creative outlet for sure.
Yeah.
And that showed up in your kids too, I think, which is really cool to have seen them over the years. Like,
They love art. Yes,
yeah,
definitely. Yeah.
yeah. It's really interesting to see how that plays out in people.
Yeah. What would you say was your biggest obstacle to going from that little girl who wrote "I want to be a professional artist" to today?
I mean, I don't want to blame, but I think, there's the starving artist. It's a myth. I mean, I think it is a challenge to make a decent amount of money in the art industry,
Yeah.
but it's not an impossible thing. You can definitely be really successful. But, everybody's path is different in that regard. So I think, with society and all that good stuff, art isn't necessarily a traditional path that you take. Um, I wish I would have been able to go to school. I still have looked into going back to school and studying art, but I don't know. I don't know
So
if I answered that question.
No, you
no,
did.
like
You did.
Okay.
I actually have a question because it was something I've been thinking of as I've watched you sort of get, honestly, no slight to the Neena that was 13 years ago or 14 years ago, but I've really watched your confidence come through as your paintings have developed and you've spent more time doing this. But what how do you develop that confidence with the brushstroke? Obviously, the more you do something, the better you get at it. But you've used different techniques, you've used different colors, you've switched subjects. What drives you then to keep exploring?
I think I'm the type of person that once I feel like I learned something, I need to learn something else. It's almost like, okay, I know how to do this now, so let me do something I completely don't know anything about.
Yeah.
So, and that's good and bad because I could further perfect what I know how to do. But instead, what I like to do is I like to learn new techniques. So I'm always trying to challenge myself to incorporate different things in my paintings. And I think that's part of being an artist. I think it's very for me, it would be a nightmare to have to paint the same thing over and over again. That would just be kind of anti why I do what I do, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Because where's the challenge in that? And where's the excitement in that? So I think part of being an artist is to learn new skills and just to constantly try to evolve.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I love it. And I think that's why we all get along so well is that I believe the same thing too. I believe that growth is part of in the DNA of being fulfilled and being happy. And I mean, the podcast is an example that we had no idea what we're doing. And then we started it. And now we've sort of gotten stable with it. And we want to try to add a YouTube channel or do other
Yeah.
things. And the fun is in learning new skills, right? And so I think that's such a really good way that you said it. It really is one of my life philosophies.
Yeah. And then how do you balance or let me say, just lessen the desire for it to be perfect, like good
Mm.
enough to show the world,
Yeah.
you
That
know?
is a challenge. It's a challenge for a perfectionist. And you're Capricorn too, right?
I'm an
So like,
Aquarius, but
oh, you're
super,
Aquarius, you're on the cusp. Yeah, no, I mean, I am a perfectionist by nature. And so that has been a challenge, I'll be like, oh no, I've worked with resin before and there's a bubble. Oh God,
Oh wow.
the whole painting is it's just a wreck now, and then I'll just lose my mind. And, and then luckily my husband, who's not a perfectionist, will come in and be like, I don't even see it. What's wrong with you? So that is always a challenge for sure. Um, but I've gotten better in that because when I start looking at other artists' work, I notice, well, you know what? It's not like perfect, but it's so beautiful. So what is, it's not about the perfection. It's about what does that painting make you feel? How does it make you feel when
yeah.
you look at it?
How long did it take for you to really become aware of that insight? And then secondly, really lean into it? Because it's one thing to know
Yeah.
something. but to
Yeah.
really believe it is not the same.
I think that's an ongoing process. A little bit, you get a little bit better with that every year. And there is a lot more room for growth there for me. But, just have to just keep working at it. Just keep looking at art and just keep painting, just keep doing what you love, really. And then it just gets better.
Yeah.
How do you feel after you finish a painting?
Pretty accomplished.
Yeah.
And usually I like the painting when I finish it, and then the next day I may not. That's just the cycle of art, really.
Yeah.
I've talked to other artists, apparently it's not just me. But I usually feel, especially if it's a large piece that I spent a lot of time on,
Yeah.
it does feel good. I was like, okay, I can paint. I did that, and so yeah. When you start with something blank and then you're able to fill it with, life, you give life to the canvas. It's an exciting thing.
And that, I bet that never gets old.
No.
Oh, wow.
Neena, you've done some commission pieces for pretty much anyone who's anyone in the Austin community. And I have to ask, what is it like for you? Because I remember when you commissioned 2 pieces, or we commissioned 2 pieces with you, and we just sort of had this blank canvas, like you said, right? Talk to us about like that, again, going back to that South Asian ingrained thought process of like, I've got to make you happy. I've got to, the desire to please, the desire to be perfect, the desire to, I guess, fit within an expectation or a mold. You want your clients to be happy. Like, tell us about that process. Is it scary? Is there a moment of, oh, I don't know what I'm doing?
Yeah.
What happens?
So do you want the honest version?
Of course. Whatever you're comfortable sharing.
We want all the versions.
Okay. Well, I'm currently not doing commissions anymore. I'm painting what I want to paint all the time. And it's just kind of I chose to kind of veer. Now I'll paint, like if somebody comes to me and says, can you do a commission for me? I will ask this question. I'll say, well, what is it that you're looking for? And if it's something that I would have painted anyways, then I'll take it, right? But if it's not, then I have already so many, my days are so full, they're over full. I'm sure y'all understand how that is. And so I if I'm going to fill it with something, it's going to be something that I'm going to want to paint, really. So yes, it's very challenging to do a commission. And if you ask, most artists will agree with that, because it takes about 3 times longer than a painting that I would do on my own, just because when you think about it, it comes out more naturally, right?
Yeah.
If it's something that you're doing that you have in your mind that you want to do, versus, so it's like, are you painting for yourself or are you painting for others? And so that's the choice that I kind of I made, that I want to paint more for myself. So
Yeah, that's so applicable, I think, to a lot of us, right? It even in work, do we do the work that we want to do, or do we do the work that we have to do to put get a paycheck or put food on the table?
yeah.
Let me ask you something. I think you're the first conversation I've had with anyone who is a professional artist, whether musical or anything. So I'm loving this conversation. Do you have like an expectation of yourself, because your art is very, it's very beautiful, it's aesthetically pleasing? Are you under pressure to portray this perfect life because of the artist persona, where someone comes over to your house and is it like needs to be like a gallery, or
It
is
is
that
a
not?
gallery.
It is a gallery, or do you have laundry around like we do?
Okay, so like most good Indian women, I will clean the house before anybody comes over. But I am so far from perfect, and I will tell you that, and I will tell anybody that I am not perfect. My family is not perfect. We are messy people.
Yeah.
It's just, we're normal, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I would say it's not messy people. You're just people. Yeah, and I was watching this quote, this podcast by Mel Robbins, and she had this woman on, and they were talking about laundry, And the woman said, and it was a great quote, she said basically that I signed up to give my family clean clothes. I didn't sign up to never have dirty clothes. And that just blew my mind, just that distinction, the way she articulated it. And then she went on to say that, laundry exists in a state of a cycle. And there's clothes on your body, there are dirty clothes in the hamper, there are clothes in the wash, there are clothes in the dryer, and there are clothes that need to be folded and put away. And then you put them on your body, and it's a cycle over and over again. But we fixate on one part of the cycle needing to be done. Like it always needs to be clean when that's not reality. And I think that fixation leads us to use qualifiers like, hey, we're messy people. I think we're all people, right? I think the normal is that cycle, and the abnormal is trying to achieve that perfection in that momentary time. Because if you think about it, it's absolutely impossible to have all clean clothes all the time, right? For the minute, even when you finish your laundry, I think there are clothes that are in the hamper that you took off the night before or something. So you can never do that. And I think that's such a really interesting way for all of us, how we've been conditioned to think that if we're not perfect, it means something's wrong with us.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Tell us about your art in that sense. Do you have art in different pieces and different stages of cycles, or do you start in a piece and then you finish it before you move on, or is it kind of like reading books where you in one chapter and you're halfway through another book?
So I used to do multiple pieces at a time and work on the ones that I was inspired to work on when I came into the studio. But now, as I'm doing larger pieces and more intricate ones, I tend to finish the piece before I move on to the next one. Or I feel like my mind is just kind of all over the place and I can't concentrate. It's almost like when you have when you have so many things you need to do, and it's too overwhelming that you don't feel like doing any of it, and you're like, forget it.
Yeah.
So now when I work on large pieces, I stick to that one piece until it's done. If I'm doing smaller pieces, then I'll kind of go, back and forth through them.
So what do you do with that? Oh, sorry, Dinesh. You said
ahead.
overwhelm, and it just, that word gets to me because I think a lot of us experience it, right? There's a lot to do. How do you unstick yourself from overwhelm?
I think you take it one step at a time, right? It's kind of like, okay, so this is the list of things I need to get done. What needs to get done today? And I do those first, and that's just kind of, you have to split things up, and you have to segment, say you have a large project coming up due, you need to segment it, and you need to say, okay, this is step 1, 2, 3, 4. And so that you can cross off one at a time rather than having this, project listed as your to-do on your to-do list, right? So you can feel accomplished. You feel like you accomplished something.
Yeah. So many parallels for life. I think that's applicable to everyone. What are your biggest South Asian influences
As far as
for your art?
Oh, okay. I think basically the fashion, the fashion of the South Asian,
Oh, really?
the
Wow.
jewelry, all of
Yeah.
that. I did a whole series on Indian saris. And so I was able to really kind of zoom in and just kind of show off the intricate designs that the Indian sari makers, all the I mean, I don't know what you would call them, textile designers, maybe,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's just the most beautiful clothing. And so I did a whole series on it because I said, you know what, let's just amplify it, zoom in on it, and let's show everybody, what it
Yeah.
looks like up close. I
That's cool.
just love it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, I can tell that you have such an artist eye where you can find sort of the things to highlight, the beauty in life, whereas most of us were just rushing by. And, I don't even stop to think that the stitching on a sari has any beauty. And I was like, oh, it looks pretty good, right?
Yeah. No, to see it on canvas was really cool because you did that series, and it was up a couple of years ago, right?
Yeah. It was up last year at the Asian American Resource Center. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah.
And, good stuff.
So one question I have, Neena, is for a lot of us who are looking to break the mold, right? And where maybe we have our set of education or whatever, we're in the mold right now, we're looking to break it, and we're looking at you. And your work has, you've had articles written about you, you've been publicized. Your art is publicly hanging downtown right now in one of the Austin suburbs, and it's there for all to see. And you've been in Tommy Bahama stores, I mean, all sorts of stuff. And I'm looking at the girl that I knew 15 years ago, and I'm looking at the woman that's sitting here in front of me today. What would you say to the person that's looking to break the mold, and they're looking at you going, yeah, but she's done all this stuff. Like, I don't even know where to start. I would never be able to do that. What do you say?
I would say just start. It all basically, how I started was I applied to a call for art. And what that is basically, say there's an exhibit and they're looking for artists for the exhibit. You have to submit your work and all that good stuff. And then it's just the easiest process. Well, some are more complicated, but the one I did, a lot of them are very simple. Just start, I mean, and this is for anything, that's art. But if you just start, take one step and every day do something towards that goal that you want to do, that you just is just like a passion inside, you'll get there. I mean, you will. Just work at it,
Yeah. How can you be so confident that you'll get there?
Because it's just all about, if you love something and you're passionate about it and you're willing to work at it. I mean, it's not, I mean, I have artists, young artists, ask me questions and they want it now. And it's like, well, yes, that happens sometimes, but that's not everybody's journey, right? Some journeys are longer than others. And it just depends on a lot of different things, and just work at it, because it's really about the moment. It's not about the end goal, right? So, we all have goals, and we reach them, and then what do? We make another goal, right? And or we may have 100 goals, and it gets to the point where you reach a goal and you don't even celebrate anymore, right?
Yeah.
And it's just like you just move on to the next goal. Well, no, celebrate the goal. You've reached it. You did it.
Yeah.
At least, I don't know. Cheers. Have a glass of champagne. I don't know. Just something to commemorate the moment of your hard work. But yeah, you just have to work hard and be passionate. And I think that you will achieve what you want to achieve.
Yeah, I love it. What has been as you started down this path that Seema was describing, right, from 15 years ago, what has been sort of the biggest surprise positive that if you're looking back now, you're like, man, I should have started a lot earlier? And I feel that about the podcast. Like, it took us a while to start the podcast. Now I look back, I'm like, what did we waste all that time for? We should have started this podcast like 6 years ago, right? And there's so many surprise positives that I couldn't have predicted when I started walking down this path. What about you?
Right.
What are some surprise positives that came out of you walking down this path that's true to yourself?
I think, you'd be surprised if you just ask. A lot of times the answer is yes, right? If you just Google, if you don't know how to do something, just Google it. And guess what? You'll get the answer, So I think, things can be overwhelming. And there's so many things I want to do. And I'm like, I don't know how to start that, but you can just do a little research and figure it out pretty easily. And you'd be surprised how many people are willing to help you too. If you have a question, there are so many people who are later on in their career, and they're so happy. They're so happy to help you. And so you just have to ask, really.
Love it. I love it.
That's
I
a new
think
phrase. That's
so
good.
Good.
That's a new word. Helpy. Happy to help.
Helpy. Right.
Yeah.
Helpy.
Happy to help. I love it. So good. So we at the end of each show, we like to have like a little traditional wrap up. So go ahead.
Our last guest, Dr. Flora Sinha, asked the next guest. She didn't know who was going to come on. She just asked a question. And so her question to you is, what is the worst piece of advice you've ever gotten?
Okay. So I've gotten a lot of bad advice. But I think the one that kind of sticks with me the most is a couple people have told me this, find out what's selling and paint that. And
Mm.
that's kind of the complete opposite of what you should do, because you should create something, and this can apply to any career, right?
Yeah.
You should pursue things that you're passionate about, because if you're not passionate about it, I guarantee you it's not going to come out. It's not going to come out good, right? And nobody's going to want it anyways.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So people can see the passion in the end result, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah, you can't chase the dollars. You've got the passion is so key, and people can sense it. I totally agree.
Yeah.
Good. So you get to ask a question to our next guest, not knowing who they
Okay.
are, and
Yeah.
we'll ask them on live show what their answer is. So what's your question?
Okay. How do you choose which opportunities to take when you are presented with them?
That's a good one.
Ooh, that's a
That's a
great
good one.
one.
Cool.
Yeah.
We'll ask them, and then you follow us on Instagram. We'll share it
Yeah.
with you.
Yeah.
The other thing that we're starting with our wrap up is on behalf of the Happy and Human podcast and Happy and Human Nation, Seema and I are going to make a small donation to a charity of our guest choice. So tell us what causes are near and dear to your heart, and we'll make a donation on behalf of the podcast, and that'll bring some publicity to the causes that are important to our guests.
Okay. What about Pratham USA?
I love it.
I think Seema can speak more about this one.
Yeah.
But Seema, you want to talk about it? Because I think you can.
Happy to. For those of you who don't know, Brownsville USA is one of the world's largest non-government organizations that is geared towards creating access and equity in education in under-resourced communities in India, but then also globally. We've expanded to 23 other countries, and we're still growing. And I say we because I'm the co-president of the Austin chapter currently. But it's phenomenal work. It's evidence-based, it's low cost, it's scalable. And I think, on average, I think anywhere from 90 to 92% of every dollar goes directly back to the beneficiaries that we're looking to help. So from early education, ages 3 to 6, all the way through youth skilling. There's a program for someone and everyone in Brutham. And the whole idea is to create, again, access to education equitable and of high quality. So through signature programs, I can go on and on, but just a quick couple of stats about Brutham. 80% of Indian girls in 8th grade have dropped out. So there's a second chance program for that. There's a women's program for that. Before the pandemic, it was 50%. I believe now the stats are higher than that. Over 50% of all 5th graders cannot read at a 2nd grade level.
Oh, wow.
So it's really, really, when you think about most of the under-resourced communities in the world being stopped and held back from their excellence and their greatness, that affects us all. And that's why we do what we do. But the reason, Neena, do you want to tell us a little bit about your collaboration with Brutham that's coming up here in a couple of weeks? We're really excited.
Okay, so I'm creating a painting for the live auction that I think of the organization and I come up with a painting that I think encompasses everything about it, or a little bit about it at least. And it just is a joyful subject matter as well. So, yeah.
We can't wait to see it. I'll post it on Instagram. I know you will too. And it's going to go, her piece is going to go for live auction. And it always is very impactful and meaningful for those who get to take it home. So thank you. So good. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a great, I know Seema is really involved in Pratham, and so we're happy to support such an important cause. So tell us, where can our audience find you? We know what's coming up for you. You're working on a joyful piece for the gala that's coming up soon. So tell us, where can our audience find you, and what are you excited about next?
So Instagram's always a great place. Facebook, I update my website slower, but I do update my website.
Yeah.
I have a few shows coming up. Do you want me to tell you
Yeah.
about the shows or? Okay, so in November every year, the Austin community, all the artists come together and they participate in the Austin Studio Tour. And it's 3 weekends out of November. I'll be participating in the second and third one where artists open up their studio spaces to the public.
Mm.
And basically, there's a map and a little bit about each artist, and people just kind of go around and they look at art, they speak to the artist, they buy art. It's just a great event, and artists all around Austin just kind of get really excited about it every year.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I'm participating in the Blue Genie Art Bazaar. If you're from Austin, you would know what that is. But if you're not, you probably don't have any idea. But I'm excited about that. That's in December. And then I have some shows coming up next year as well. So yeah, I'll be updating everything on social media and everything.
So good. What's your Instagram?
It's Neena's Art with 2 E's.
Love it. Love it.
Mhm.
Good stuff.
If you're on YouTube and listening, hit subscribe so we can keep this going and continue bringing you amazing guests that inspire you to think, do, and be better in everyday life. So with that, guys, thank you so much. We'll see you next time.